So I think one of the best things about Velma that has come out is all the articles that come out and show for Velma. I've said this multiple times. I'm a big fan of the articles more than I am of probably the show because I think the articles coming out from these show media websites and just watching them try to deflect and try to dance around the idea that Velma is universally hated, that Mindy Kaling's entire design is universally hated. They try to dance around that idea because they can't actually come out and say they dislike this show. They need to blame everybody else for the dislike, but they themselves can't say they dislike it. However, they're going to try to convince you as to the reasons why the show is actually amazing, even though it is universally hated by everyone. This TV show has united people more than people were united in World War II, okay? It's literally one of those kind of shows that is universally hated and has got everybody on one side for the most part. Now, with that being said, we have show media websites like Wired, for example. I don't think I've ever read an article from them ever, and they're trying to come out and basically talk about how Velma is the punching bag of social media, essentially, and they're trying to explain why Velma is the punching bag for social media. And of course, you guys can basically tell what they're going to say before they actually say it. I mean, if you had to think about what a show media website is going to say about Velma before they even say it, what would you think? Will they talk about diversity? Will they talk about racism? Will they talk about homophobia? They're probably going to talk about a lot of those things, and you're probably going to be right. So we're going to get into the article, guys. This one comes to us from Wired. But of course, before we do, guys, consider giving me a long view duration. Smash that like button. I would greatly appreciate it. You guys have been doing amazing on the channel lately, and it's been helping out so much. So it says the show's got cred and a lot of viewers, apparently. That's news to me, yet it's still in the social media crosshairs. Blame the character's legacy, apparently, for this. This is interesting. I want to see what these people have to say. So it says HBO Max's latest entry into the Scooby-Doo canon, Velma, has the kind of pedigree that usually signals a hit. What? Are you watching the same show? How does something like this signal a hit? There is nothing, and I repeat, there is nothing about this show that will signal a hit at all. Everybody saw the failure coming. Everybody saw the roasting coming. If it signaled anything, it signaled a bomb. Like, it's basically that simple. It says executive produced by veteran TV auteur Mindy Kaling, who also voices the animated series title character. It's a show about one of pop culture's most beloved nerds. Like Riverdale before it, Velma also takes a kids' entertainment staple and gives it a new, wingling adult twist. Yet with all of that going for it, the show still has become the internet's new favorite punching bag. Tweets knock the show's attempt at edgy humor, mocking the culture wars. Parodies take aim at its plot lines. Forbes has made a beat of dramatically chronicling the backlash. Showrunner Charlie Grandy, a frequent collaborator of Kaling's and the son of a former Love Boat star, has apparently been accused of being a nepotism case, one post declared. As another put it, succinctly enough, everyone hates Velma. Now, out of everything in this article, I would have to agree that yes, everyone hates Velma, and everyone hates Velma for a very good reason. The show is garbage. Aside from the animation being maybe passable, nothing else in the show works. It's literally bad to the point where it's so bad that it's slightly even interesting to watch the fire happen. That's where a lot of people are at. Like, it's one of those shows where it's so bad that I'm willing to bet a lot of people are just watching it through their favorite YouTubers to see the fire go down. That's essentially what they're doing. Now, I made a video prior about Velma's views being up 127%, but that number ended up being falsified, of course, and it ended up being glamorized because that's what they do all the time when it comes to situations like this. They need to glamorize the biggest number available to them to make themselves look as good as possible, and they decided to do the 127% number, but what they actually meant, and I'll go further into it, was social media clicks and searches. That's what led to that 127% increase, not actual views for the show, but we're going to go further into it because I think this article touches that. So it says, the full truth behind this fallout, as usual, is complicated. Despite the vitriol, people are watching the show. According to HBO Max, Velma was its biggest animated series premiere ever. Well, again, this is what they do. They make everything seem grander than it actually is. Velma, of course, is going to be one of the biggest animated series premiere ever because they canceled so many animated shows, they have almost nothing to show for it. So Velma's one of the first ones that they're coming out with, so of course it's going to be the biggest animated series premiere ever. They learned this from Marvel. Every time a Marvel movie comes out, it's always, oh, this is the biggest Marvel movie of the year. Even though it could be the first one of the year, they're still going to say biggest Marvel movie of the year. They do it for every single Marvel movie that comes out. So this TV show uses the same exact tropes to try to explain themselves to make themselves look better. It says, problem is, they're watching it through the lens of the entire history of Velma and Scooby-Doo franchise as a whole. For one, Velma opted for colorblind casting. Oh, here we go. Colorblind casting. Here's the thing. You can't actually have colorblind casting if all you see is color, right? So if you're focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you're purposefully trying to make sure that you check off every box you possibly can, then you're not doing colorblind casting. You're actually doing color-focused casting, because that's all you see. That's all you're focused on. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for diversity over to the point where you are making sure you check off every box. That is color-focused. That's not colorblind. It says, with its title character now being a South Asian woman, for another, this Velma is portrayed as more overtly queer. Here we go with the gay stuff. But while it might be easy to chalk up backlash against the show to the usual racism and or homophobia that tends to accompany this kind of thing, and there's likely still a bit of that at play here, what's going on with Velma runs deeper than that. Does it really, though? Does it really? Like, is this really all about racism and homophobia? Or is that the same tired excuse that a lot of these show media sites and all these showrunners and studios like to use whenever their shows are completely trashed? Like, you can't keep using the same excuse over and over. It's ridiculous. Like, I'm almost positive these media sites would find some sort of way to blame racism and homophobia, even if the show had an all-white cast. Like, they would still find a way. If the show is meant to be woke and it's trash and it completely fails, they would find a way to make it about that. The biggest gripes about the show seem not to be that it's addressing issues of diversity in the Mystery Inc. gang, but is it really an issue? Like, are these really issues? Like, the lack of diversity in the Mystery Gang, is that really an issue? But rather than the show is doing it in a flat, one-note manner. And when it comes to Velma's sexuality, something that's been a topic of discussion in Scooby-Doo discourse for years, any attempt to address the matter needs depth. For decades, through various Scooby-Doo properties, the writers behind the character have hinted that Velma is gay. In her earliest iterations, she was definitely queer-coded. That's queer-coded. Queer-coded is essentially their way of trying to say, we really want Velma to be gay, so we looked overly into certain things and we took everything we possibly could out of context to try to make her seem gay. That's what queer-coded is. They're making shit up until she's officially announced as gay when the showrunners want to bend the knee and make her gay. That's basically what happens. It says the writers behind the character have hinted Velma's gay. In her earliest iteration, she was definitely queer-coded, and James Gunn, who wrote 2 Scooby-Doo live-action movies in early 2000s, claimed a few years back that Velma was explicitly gay in his initial script in 2001, but the studio just kept watering it down, becoming ambiguous. The version shot, then nothing, the released version, and finally having a boyfriend, the sequel. During Pride Month in 2020, Tony Carvone, who was a supervising producer on the animated series Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, made a post on Instagram saying his Velma was not bi, she's gay. Of course he did. Why wouldn't you? I mean, it's popular to do it now, so why wouldn't you want to do it? It's free clout. But Velma's sexuality in Mystery Incorporated, which aired from 2010 to 2013, was only ever hinted at. Then later this year, in the animated movie Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo, the subtext became text. Velma had a crush on a female villain, and the internet loved it. I'm sure they did. As the Washington Post reported, a teenager from Ontario was one of the first to spot the confirmation, and her gushing tweet promptly went viral. OMG, lesbian Velma finally canon in the movies, let's go. So once again, Velma being a lesbian is a thing that a lot of people went after, a lot of people who were overly looking into things, who wanted her to be so desperately lesbian because they're into like some weird R34 fetish, so they wanted her to be lesbian. And eventually the showrunners decided to do it because it was popular to do it now, whereas it wasn't popular to do it before. So of course they're gonna do it. It's one of those, it's an easy clout chase, it's an easy clout point. Like, why wouldn't you do it if it's just something that you could get easy internet points off? It says you couldn't blame Velma Dinkley fans for feeling that. Through sheer joy and encouragement, they helped make the character's sexuality part of the Scooby story. And that's exactly what I was saying. The fans are the ones, the small amount of fans, they wanted her to be gay so desperately, they're the ones who made it part of the story because the showrunners bent the knee to them. That's essentially how it is, because she was into dudes the entire time. She was literally into guys the entire time, and whatever hints at being gay that people saw was people overly looking into things. Honestly, there was never a confirmation of her being gay up until modern times, like current times of Scooby-Doo. Other than that, there was nothing. She was into guys. She had a thing for Johnny Bravo. Like, there was nothing showcasing her being gay, of course. But once again, different times. It says effectively the character became a meme, and the meme became the character in Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo, she was finally where her online fan base wanted her to be. No, she was basically what the special forums, I'll put, wants her to be. You know, the place where you share interesting images of certain anime characters or animated characters as a whole. You know, those kind of forums. That's who wanted Velma to be gay, not anybody else. So it says, and so when HBO Max's Velma, snarky, petty, and full of righteous and not so righteous fury showed up, maybe a lot of people weren't ready for it. Furthermore, for better or for worse, they felt ownership. But as Charlie, son of the Love Boat guy, Grandy explained to Wired, the idea was never to retcon Scooby-Doo, to completely replace it. Grandy and Kaling always wanted to be this one little weird ice planet in the Scooby-Doo verse. Outside of this version of Velma, Grandy points out the more traditional Scooby-Doo properties will continue to exist. There'll still be Scooby-Doo movies on HBO. There'll still be Scooby-Doo animated features. That train is never going to stop. Yes, this version of Velma has taken liberties, but no, that doesn't mean this version of Velma is supposed to supersede all others. Velma began 3 or 4 years ago when Kaling was invited to peruse the Warner Bros. Catalog and unearthed a latent affinity with Velma. She had seen herself in that character growing up, Grandy says. But how is that possible? How did you see yourself in that character when people like Mindy Kaling love to talk about the fact that it's impossible for them to see themselves unless they actually physically see themselves in the character? So Mindy Kaling, you should not have been able to see yourself in the original Velma, who was very white. You shouldn't have been able to do that. It contradicts a lot of what these people say. They always like to say, oh, I saw myself in this character growing up, so I'm going to change this character so that other people can see themselves in this character now, because it's not possible to see themselves unless they actually physically have some sort of connection to them. It's like, you need to pick a story here. It doesn't make any sense. But these people are never consistent, and that's the issue with a lot of the stuff that they create. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you did enjoy, and if you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.